To all of the race fans out there, the NASCAR Cup Series regular season is starting to wind down. You got 3 races left this weekend out in Richmond. Then you go to Watkins Glen and end things out in Daytona. These next 3 weeks are very critical weeks for drivers such as Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. And today, I'm going to talk about a lot of things. First and foremost, give y'all my predictions on this weekend and how things will possibly play out. Points update, but also, we're going to do a pick 5 contest as usual. Just comment down below your top 5 to be entered. If you go 5 for 5, you get an autograph of your choice. And if you go 4 for 5, you get an unsigned hero card. And stay tuned for next weekend when I post a video for Watkins Glen, because I will talk about the playoff format for the Pick 5 contest series. So stay tuned for that, but kick back and relax and enjoy. But let's get started.
I'm Chase Briscoe, driver number 14 Ford Mustang for Stewart Haas Racing, and you're watching William Blackwell on YouTube.
Before I talk about this weekend's race out in Richmond, I am wanting to talk about this past weekend for a brief moment. In Saturday's qualifying session, we saw young Bubba Wallace for 2311 Racing in a 23 car getting on a pole in a dominating manner. And it was by a big margin over Christopher Bell. But the Toyotas were very quick as a whole. All 4 JGR cars, and Bubba was quick, and also Ty Gibbs was, but he just missed out the second round. But when Sunday rolled around, we had Bubba Wallace and Christopher Bell on the front row. Bubba Wallace got off well. Christopher Bell didn't really. He dropped like a rock on the opening start, and Wallace led to the competition caution. And when that came out, he decided to pit. And throughout the rest of the day, he really never had the track position before or until the final restart where him and Harvick were on the front row. Harvick ran off with it. He had short run speed while Wallace didn't. And by the time when Wallace's car came to life, it was a tad too late. But Kevin Harvick went to victory lane. A new winner. We got 15 out of 16. We got 3 weeks left. I am sure we will see at least one more. Definitely not going to happen at Richmond here. I believe that the winner at Richmond will be someone that's been up there week in and week out throughout the season. And same for Watkins Glen, but it leaves it all down to Daytona, which is a strong possibility. If I was going out there to bet, I would bet we'll see a new winner. It's just going to happen. They wreck every single lap, it seems like there. But Harvick won. Very enthused interviews he done after the race for SiriusXM, NBC. He was very excited. It's been 65 races. Bristol in 2020. It's been a long time. The streak came to an end. Really did. Is he a championship contender? I'm not too sold on it yet. NBC was clearly sold on it, but we got to see. I believe he is locked into the playoffs. He is almost 100 points ahead of Kurt Busch. So if things were to come down to one-time winners and points, he would be clearly in by a big margin. So no worries there for Kevin Harvick. But Bubba Wallace, who came home second, had a great weekend. His best weekend ever, in my opinion, besides Talladega. Started on the pole, finished second, gained a lot of confidence heading into Richmond, one of his better tracks. But I did not stick by his comments after the race. He is talking about how the Fords were wanting to team up on him and kind of cost him the win. I think that's completely false, because Team Penske and Stewart Haas Racing have no affiliation at all. They're both Fords, don't get me wrong here, but they do not share data. If it was the 10 car blocking for the 4 car, I can see where you're coming from, but not the 22 and the 4. So get your stuff right heading into Richmond. I do not stand by that at all. But Bubba Wallace did have a great weekend, though. His time is coming. He will win this season. Just a matter of time when. But his comments I do not like. I'm not a big fan of them. But his time is coming. But now on to Richmond. I just had to get that off my chest. Kevin Harvick, in my opinion, not a championship contender, in my opinion, as of now. Bubba Wallace, his comments were way out of line, and I do not agree with them at all. The Fords did not team up purposely against him. But enough said about Michigan. We're heading into Richmond here, And Toyota camp is going to be very quick, like they always are, like they were in the spring. In the spring, we saw the 11 car of Denny Hamlin getting the win. And that's when the page turned for Toyota as a whole, because after that, they gained momentum and confidence and won the Coca-Cola 600 a month later. But this time around, a JGR car will win, but it will not be the 11 car of Denny Hamlin. I don't think he'll finish in the top 5. I believe the winner in this Sunday's race out in Richmond will be the 20 car of Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell came into the Cup Series in 2020, and a lot of people were speaking very highly of him, and I was one of them. And in the Levine family racing, he didn't really have much competitive races and stuff like that, but eventually he got the promotion in 2021 to JGR. Won right off the bat in one of the early races out in Daytona, and throughout the season kind of went south. This time around in 2022, a lot of people viewed him as one of the favorites because it's the next gen car. He's young, and the younger drivers are starting to adapt a lot better than the veterans do to these new type of vehicles. For instance, you got Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, and Ross Chastain. They're all doing good, while like the drivers such as Kevin Harvick, Truex, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch are kind of struggling. So this time around, Christopher Bell, I kind of assume that he's got it going, and winning at Loudon just over a month ago, I'm sure that has to give him a boost because Loudon is somewhat regarded as a short track, and Richmond is clearly a short track, so Christopher Bell winning shouldn't be a big surprise to a lot of people. But coming home in second place will be the 4 car of Kevin Harvick. A lot of people are assuming that I'm picking Harvick because he's the most recent Cup winner, which is not true at all. He is the most recent Cup winner, but he did have a great outing in the spring, came home second. If he would have maneuvered through traffic just a tad bit better at the end of the race and got by Truex and Byron a lot cleaner and smoother, he would have had a little bit more time to play around and catch the 11 car of Denny Hamlin. But by the time he got past them 2 cars, he was just too far behind, and he just needed the caution to ultimately try to go for the win, which wasn't going to happen and never did happen. But he did finish second, and this time around, I think he will finish second yet again. But coming home in third place will be the 19 car of Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. is in 4th place right now in the point standings, but he's in 17th when it comes to the playoff standings. That's a big change up right there. And I know it's going to feel really bad for them if they miss out on the playoffs. And at the end of every season, the regular season, there's a regular season champ. This time around, Truex is out of it, so you cannot rely on that. Neither can Brian Blaney. It's really down between Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott. But Chase Elliott, I believe, will wrap it up this weekend, without a doubt. He's very competitive week in and week out, so I think he will get locked up. Top 15, I think it is. So get it guaranteed. So there you go. Chase Elliott will win the regular season championship, and which will force Martin Truex Jr. into winning a race. I don't think pointing your way in will make it a big change at all. You got to win. And Truex, I believe, will come out this weekend, be competitive. He will be very aggressive also, but he will come home in P number 3. P number 4 will be the 23 car Bubba Wallace. He's coming off a career best weekend out in Michigan. A lot of people want to talk about this last year where he won at Talladega, saying that's the best we've ever seen Bubba Wallace race. I highly disagree with that. This past weekend at Michigan, I seen a whole new Bubba. On the track, he was very quick. And I'm liking this way things are going for 2311 racing in general. They're heading in a positive direction. Maybe a tad bit slower than they hoped for. But their time is coming, and by next year, they should all be contending for wins week in and week out, not every so often like they are this year. But Bubba Wallace will come home 4th after a great little bit of confidential weekend at Michigan. He gained a lot of confidence, and you need that. He's good at Daytona, so I'm sure they're looking at that race on the calendar because he's sure the hell not going to win at Watkins Glen. He is not a road course racer at all. And all the good road course racers out there in the Cup Series has pretty much wins under their belt. So next weekend, I believe, will be a same winner, no new winner. So the possibility of Wallace winning before Daytona will be this Sunday in Richmond, and I think he will fall short. But rounding out my top 5 will be the 6 car of Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski this year has been very up and down. Had the big penalty at Atlanta early on this year. Kind of set them behind the 8 ball. But still, though, they're nowhere near the top 16. And their only hope to winning and making a playoff is just to win a race simply. And to have no one else win. Because if they do, their win is going to be pretty irrelevant. For instance, if Truex goes out and wins Sunday in Richmond, Keselowski winning at Daytona in a couple of weeks will be pretty irrelevant because it would have nothing to do. Too far behind in points, so Daytona could be very irrelevant after all. But there you go, Brad Keselowski will round out my top 5. There you go, Christopher Bell, Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., Bubba Wallace, and Brad Keselowski. And my dark horse will be the 10 car of Eric Almirola. But everybody, though, remember to please like and subscribe.